You're on.
Good evening, Nick family. Welcome to another edition of the Queen's Court. Appreciate you for joining us. A lot to talk about today, as always. The Knicks are, 26 and 40? My goodness. Still in 12th place in the conference, 5 games out of the play in. I have to give you that, but I know most of us, we not. It's a wrap for a lot of us, right? We're going to review last week's game. We're going to talk about next week's game. I'll talk a little bit about RJ and Randall, whether we think they could play well together. Talk about IQ a little bit. He played pretty okay this week. And then I also want to get the panel's thoughts on Sims and McBride, who both of them who have been pressed into pressed into duty, how they've been. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification button so you'll be notified anytime the Queen's Court goes live, the controversy, Knicks and bruises, and of course, pregame, postgame, the morning shoot around with the creator, Semini Russell, and the NBA report with Ron and John for still Knicks fans. Do not want to forget them. I'm joined today by Tony Crow, my co-host on the crossover. Also, you know him from Knicks and Bruises. Savvy is with us. He'll talk to you a little bit about his Knicks fandom and where you can follow him at. And the man himself, Simeon Russell, is with us, back with us today. So I appreciate him being on. There's no Queen's Court without Sim. So definitely appreciate him. So let's bring the panel in and let's get to work. Fellas, how are you? How's it been?
Peace, Queen. Shout out to the chat. Savvy D.
Shabby, I jump in there. I'm good. I'm good. I'm feeling good. Basketball season is over, so I got a little bit more free time. So yeah, I'm definitely feeling good.
Yeah, yeah.
What's up, panel? Shout out to the chat. MBK fam all day and always. It's good to be here. My first appearance on the Queen's Court.
Yes, I meant to
Let's
say
get
that.
it popping.
Yeah. Listen, let's go over these games real quick. I'm not gonna belabor the point. Everybody has watched the games. Let me put that up there. The Knicks played 4 games last week, and we were 2-2 with the opportunity to really go 4-0. Right? We lost to Memphis by 4 points. We lost to Brooklyn by 3 points. We were in both of those games. I noticed that RJ is bringing the ball up a bit more. I really like that. Like I said, Quickly, I thought played well this week. We'll talk about, him as well. Randall seems to have, hit his stride a little bit. We'll talk about that and what that means um, going into next season. But again, I'm not going to belabor the point about going so in depth, but I do want to talk about Sacramento. Randall, 46 points, 10 rebounds, 8 3-pointers. RJ, 29 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. IQ, 27.6 rebounds, 4 assists. What I like about IQ this game, and we'll talk about it again during the panel, he was very aggressive. He puts a lot of pressure on the defense, getting into the lane with the floater, shooting the 3-point. He's just a different game, a different player when he does that, and he rebounded very well for us this week. Dallas, that was a blowout. Randall, 26 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. Barrett, 18 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. We had 6 players in double figures. That Memphis game, man, Randall, 36 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists. RJ, 23.7 rebounds, 2 assists. We had a Burke sighting, right? 18.6 rebounds, 5 assists. And then Brooklyn. KD did KD things. Randall, 26 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. Fournier played well for us, 25 points, 5 assists, 5 3-pointers. RJ, look at RJ just consistently showing up. In my opinion, other than Derrick Rose, who's been out since December, RJ's really the only one we can count on game in and game out where you know what you're going to get. Everybody else, it's a crapshoot. As of late, Randall's been somewhat consistent, definitely more efficient. But as I was talking about with Tony, if you're going to be a successful team, you got to have players that show up game in and game out. It can't be this player this game, this player the next game. And the Knicks don't have that. RJ against Brooklyn, 24 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. Let's get back to the panel. I have some specific questions, but I do like to start with just a general question. Anything about this week, game wise or player wise, that stood out for you? We'll just go down the line. Sim, Tony, Savvy.
I mean, nothing really stood out. I just thought the Knicks actually over the entire 7-game road trip, I thought they played well.
Yeah.
Right? I thought they played it was a good road trip. They just didn't win. I mean, they won 3 of the 7 games. They easily could have and should have been 4-3 on the road trip. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? They easily could have went, man, I mean, they could have came out of there maybe even 5-2 on the road trip, really, with the way that they played basketball. It all
Yeah.
comes down to late game execution. You know what I mean? And I'm afraid now, and it looks like each one of these games is going to be the story of the entire season. You know what I mean? Like the Knicks can play well, but then they couldn't play well late, and this is what's happening now. Like they can't pull these games out late, and now they got to pull out the season out late, and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to pull the season out late.
Yeah. Before we get to Tony, so let me ask you this. Do you have the sense, well, this is a sense I have. Do you agree that what the Knicks are trying to do now is like should have been the process earlier in the season? Like, how do you close out games? It's like we're finally getting there, learning how to close out games, but the season is over,
Right.
practically.
Yeah, I think, yeah. You know what I mean? And I don't know if sometimes if you have too many people that you have to play, you can't find the right consistency. You know what I mean? And, I wonder sometimes if that was, one of the issues, at least one of the issues with the Knicks, right? It's so many people that you just can't find the right consistency. And, people are complaining that, Tibbs doesn't go deep in the rotation, but sometimes you might have the type of team where you can't go deep in the rotation because you got to get some guys out there that can just be comfortable together on the floor, and you have a steady 9-man rotation or whatever it is. And, those guys can rock out. And obviously on nights when there's injuries and things like that, guys got to play. It just depends on, who those guys going to be, because like I'm looking at Burks, I think he's playing better. And part of it, I think, is because he's not, I don't want to say worried, but he knows he's going to be a starter, right? He's not going to the bench to be a shooting guard and then coming back in to be a starter, then going back to the bench and then coming back in. You know what I'm saying? He's just comfortable in his role. Immanuel Quickley has been playing better. Didn't play great against Brooklyn, but been playing better lately, and maybe it's because he's not looking over his shoulder, right? He knows he's going to be out there on the floor. I think those things mean something, when it comes to the team that's building a little bit of chemistry, understanding what their roles are. And, it's just so many question marks this year.
Definitely.
And I think it hurt the team.
Yeah, for sure. Tony, then Savvy.
To answer your second question first, and take it a step further off of what Slim said, I think we were playing better during the 3-17 stretch than we were earlier in the season. The problem with that was we were playing better and we weren't even in the game at the end. So we had to make that adjustment. Hence, we made the adjustment and we started being in the game at the end, but couldn't finish them. And then, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's just been a longer process than I think needed to be. But I am encouraged, as we talked about on Knicks and Bruises, about the future based off what I've seen, from these guys. I think we're a better team than we've showed. And I think the chemistry should be a lot better earlier next year. And then as far as last week in particular, the biggest thing that stood out is like RJ and Randle like becoming a dynamic duo. You know what I mean? Like they kind of, just looking at the numbers that you had up there, I would guess that that's definitely in the top 10 of duos, you know what I mean, in that stretch, or if that's what they were given all year, that would be like a top 10 duo in the league, maybe even closer to top 5 with the combined numbers. So definitely encouraging again for the future. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you know what strikes me the most about this recent stretch of how the Knicks have been playing is just like it seemed like it came full circle in a sense to how the team was right before we got Derrick Rose, where you had guys who played well together, understood each other, right, and just didn't have it in them to last all the way through the end of the fourth quarter. To Sim's point about the size of the rotation, I do think that we're reaching a point of familiarity where, you know, you can sub a couple guys out, sub a couple guys in, and they've all played together enough to where they have a familiarity with each other. I think what goes a long way is to be able to have people on the same team who can predict each other. Like if they're all predictable to each other, but still managing to be unpredictable to the opposing defense, then they could still find a way to break down defenses. They could still find a way to score and change things up when the defense adjusts to put the clamps on one guy. You know, what another thing that really strikes me about this recent stretch is I feel like we got our attitude back. It seemed like for a minute there, we were just a timid team that would come out, get hot every once in a while, have a chance to beat anybody, but wind up getting beat by basically everybody. And then it felt like the energy wasn't right. Now it feels like our attitude is back. We got our mojo back, and we know we can win this game. Like we're coming in your house, and we know that we can win this game. And that's why I love seeing us play on the road, because we've been better on the road this season than we have been at home. And I think those things go a long way to the culture of the team. I think the issue is now that we don't have as definitive of a closer as we did last year. Last year was Julius Randle's supernova season. So at the end of games, assuming he was on the floor and healthy, you know, and not completely drained, he would be our closer. And if not, then we would have Derrick Rose on the floor at least to set the pace, right, and make sure that we didn't get too far ahead of ourselves, and make sure that we were still being methodical on offense. I think now one of the impacts of the rise of RJ Barrett is sometimes we don't know who to turn to in times like these, and we're still waiting on Derrick Rose to get back. We don't have a definitive point guard. The young guys are rising up and doing some good things to keep us in the game down the stretch as best they can, but we still need to work on execution.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point, and I guess I can direct this to the panel. Is it that we're not executing down the stretch? Do you see confusion down the stretch in terms of us not knowing who we should go to? Should we go to RJ? Should we go to Randle? Or it's not necessarily that. We're just not making shots or not or not getting stops. What do you think, Tony? Then I'll go to Sim. All right, I'll go to Sim first.
Yeah, go to Sim first.
Okay. I think it's decision making, which, yeah, I guess plays into execution as well. Like, for example, against Brooklyn, I don't remember the time, but I remember the score. It was 103-103. Julius Randle has the ball on the wing, right? And he's holding it. He's looking for a shot. He wants to take the shot. Instead of realizing, you know what, I got the ball a little bit too long. Let me just get it out of my hands, let it move, see if we can get a better shot. Instead, he tries to force it, turns the ball over. Kevin Durant comes the other way, hits transition three. Now it's 106-103. Right. You know, whatever was the play or whatever what was called or was not called, to me, that's just poor execution, right? Because he just made a bad decision.
Right.
When you get to, I forgot, I don't know, maybe it was 6 seconds left or whatever it was, RJ Barrett's on a break. Julius Randle gets the ball to RJ Barrett. The Knicks need a three to try to tie the basketball game. And, even RJ, if you listen to him in the post-game interview, he was like, it was a weird play. James Johnson, like, I expected him to do one thing, and he tried to reach from the back. And so I never pulled up the three, because it just got kind of weird. He wasn't sure exactly what was happening. But I feel like he was indecisive and didn't have it in his mind to just come down and pull the three. And so he gets fouled first when there was plenty of time for him to pull a three, and he goes to the line and shoots 2 free throws instead of getting a chance to pull a three. Right. So I think that's kind of poor execution. And then the last play going to Evan Fournier, I just thought that was a bad play call. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that really goes into execution. If you want to say executing as a coach, you know what I mean? I just thought it was a bad play call. So I think decision making is, if you want to lump that in with execution, that's fine. But I think decision making is just, they got to make better decisions. Part of that is being young, as far as the players are concerned. And say what you want about Randle. People are going to say he's 27. But in the role that he's in, he's young. RJ Barrett is young. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And to your point, I don't see a lot of confusion either. I don't think it's like they don't know where to go to. I just see poor execution. And to your point, Randle came up big for us last season, but you got to also remember Rose was in that closing unit as well. Mm-hmm. And he hit some big shots for us. Yeah. So now we're going down the stretch without that leadership and without that experience, because to Sim's point, Randle is young and, in his role. But let's talk about IQ this week. In 4 games, he's played 29 minutes. He averaged 13.3 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, shot 87.5% from the free throw line. Did not shoot well field goal wise, just 39%. Did not shoot well from the 3, just 26.7%. But he had that 2 pretty good games, I believe, definitely against Sacramento. And I'm wondering, the Clippers, I think he played okay. So having watched Quickley being pressed into action, I know the fan base gets on him about being a point guard, but you got to remember he was pressed into action because Rose and Kemba Walker are no longer with the team for injuries, and Kemba getting ready for next season. So he's been pretty much pressed into this role. Having seen him, especially in that Sacramento game, I'm not sure what your initial thoughts about him playing point guard was, but do you feel more encouraged that he can play that position, or do you feel more like this confirms that, that's not really his spot? And next year he should play exclusively at that 2 position. Tony, Savvy, and then we'll go to Sim.
I'm definitely, I did not like him playing the point. I thought it was a disadvantage for him. Mm-hmm. But I think he's kind of proved me wrong. One thing that I've always pointed out was, even though he wasn't playing well shooting, you could see the development in his facilitating. You could see how good he's shown he is defensively at guarding that one position. And so defense, facilitating, and rebounding. His rebounding had actually looked good at that position as well. So I think not only am I encouraged moving forward, you mentioned on the past show, we may have him at the starting point next year if we're not able to upgrade. I wouldn't mind that at either, but even when it goes back to moving back to the 2, I think it makes him a better player overall. So I think we'll see he won't be just stuck at taking these shots that some of us cringe when we see him, especially when they miss. But he can do other things from the two spot as well. So I'm super encouraged. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Savvy.
Yeah, like it's great seeing IQ appear to be figuring out how to iron the kinks out of his game. When it comes to the position, I wouldn't mind seeing him start whether that be at the point guard or otherwise, because I think that having him get some runs in with the rest of that unit would be beneficial to him and beneficial to us in certain key ways. For example, if we were to use him maybe as a third option ball handler, if we keep RJ, bringing the ball up, if we let Julius bring the ball up in certain scenarios, we don't have to use him as a primary ball. We don't have to use IQ as a primary ball handler just because we have him at the one. It'd be nice to have a one starting that we could look to primarily handle the ball. But in the meantime, I don't think that we would do so horribly to have IQ be the ball handler. And I think that as we see him make more prudent decisions, as we see him develop more of a procedure, more of a criteria by which he decides to dish off or to attack the basket, then we can look to him to handle the ball more. Right now, it seems like, he'll be dribbling, and when he doesn't see a clear course of action, he'll kind of hold the ball and try to calculate some things, figure some things out before he makes a decision. We could lose 3 or 4 seconds on the shot clock that way, and that would be the main reason why I'd like to keep the ball out of his hands in certain scenarios. But when it comes to the off-ball movement, when it comes to, his defense has shown improvement, his awareness and his movement on defense has shown improvement. I think he could be better at trying to do more to get steals and play the passing lanes, right? But I could definitely see a scenario where he could, hit some big shots for us, get hot. He could play some good defense and definitely, showcase more of his ability to attack the paint and force defenses to collapse, because it appears that he's figured out a way to convert more of those floaters and to actually get to the rim outside of taking those floaters. And when the defense collapses, now we have RJ, who is being able to shoot more. We have Julius Randle getting back in his groove. If we still have Fournier in that lineup, assuming we have IQ at the one, then we have another shooting option out there. So then that would be a beautiful thing to see if he could just take a few more steps forward in the way that he attacks the basket.
Right. Okay. So for you, you would still like to see him more in the off-ball role.
More in the off-ball role, but I could see him elevated in the lineup. You feel me?
Right.
Like,
Got you.
like starting, but not being the primary ball handler.
Got you.
Okay. And then having Burks coming off the bench and still just doing Alec Burks things.
Okay. Sam, anything you've seen this week that makes you a bit more encouraged about him playing that position, even if it's in the second unit, or you also feel like he needs to just go back to playing?
No, I think I've seen a few things that encourages me that he can play point guard, but there's, still one big thing that, makes me say no. Well, a couple of things that I've seen though is he's staying on his feet to get to the basket, right? Because like last year, when he would come off a screen or he'd get into the lane, he was automatically going to the floater. And sometimes he would take that floater so deep, there was no way for the defense to collapse. And so with the defense not being able to collapse, he couldn't spray the ball back out to shooters. But now he's staying on his feet, sometimes getting all the way to the rim, which will allow the defense to collapse and he can kick it out. So that's something that I'm encouraged with what I'm seeing from him. And he's knowing where people are, right? So like he comes off the screen and he gets in and he's knowing, okay, who's open, who can I kick it to? How did the defense defend me? Coming off the screen, so that he knows where to kick it to. So those things, I'm encouraged by those things, because I think those are key elements to playing point guard in the NBA. If you staying on your feet, getting to the rim so that the defense can collapse. He can attack the rim hard which puts us, the defense in a state of emergency, and he's able to pass. The big thing though is decision making. You know what I mean? And if you're gonna be, we talk about with this team, you gotta be able to. Well, we need somebody who's able to settle the team down. Get the ball where it needs to be and to who it needs to be with at that particular point in time. Right now, I don't see him being that guy. He's too erratic. You know what I'm saying? And when things start to get tough and you need someone to settle it down, I don't think IQ is the guy to settle it down.
No.
You know what I mean? I can't.
And it's a shame because like you said, he's been getting better at staying on his feet when he's attacking the basket. And a caller that you had pointed out that he doesn't like the way that IQ gets officiated, and I don't either. Because in moments like that, if he could just maintain that level-headedness and find a way to attack in a way that gets him fouled, that gets him called, that gets him to the line, he's our best free throw shooter. You feel me? Yep. So I have supreme faith in him when he's at the free throw line. So it's a real shame that he still seems to like lose his composure in certain moments like that when the heat is on. But I think that's just gonna shake off with time.
I mean, and the thing is, still he's young. You know what I'm saying? He's young, so he's got to learn a little bit. I don't know if he has the natural wherewithal to be that kind of guy that's going to settle you down. I don't know if he does. You know what I mean? That may not come until he's 30 years old. You know what I mean? But so right now the Knicks need a guy that can get you settled.
I understand, but you got to admit that even he's got better at settling, at the very least, himself down. You know what I mean? So I'm encouraged in that aspect to where it may have to start there. You know what I mean? Where he's a little bit more decisive in some of the shots that he's taking, or not taking some of the shots that maybe before he wouldn't hesitate to. So I think it's definitely a work in progress. But I mean, you got to be encouraged by what you've seen. So
yeah.
You know what I mean? In that area,
it's definitely a work in progress for him. You know what I'm saying? He's just, but he's young. He's 21. He's got a lot of learning to do as far as it comes to being in the NBA. A lot of learning to do.
Yeah, I mean, I do see his position as an off guard, but somebody that can play that position in a pinch. And he is young. This is just his second year, so everybody's getting on IQ, but at the same time, we want Tibbs to play the young guys. This is what you get when you play young guys. They're up and down. They're going to have good games. They're going to have good stretches. They're going to have shooting slumps, like Quickley for the most part has been in it, all season. I think that he's been asked to play a role that I'm not sure this is what he was bargaining for coming in, even though they did play him in that position in the summer league.
Right.
And it's hard for me to say for any young player what they can't ever be, right? That's really hard. But in that Sacramento game, like there's times when a player will have a perfect game that they may or may not be able to duplicate. I don't know if it was perfect, but a game where you can see the potential of what this player can be.
Right.
And that's what I saw in that Sacramento game. The pressure he was putting on them, getting in the lane with the floater, rebounding the ball very well, just seemed very active. He looked like a different player. So I'm like, if he can ever become that most of the time, that really bodes well for the Knicks. But I do see him as a 2, but I see him as a swing. He could, probably do both. And a lot of times when we're thinking point guard, we're thinking that traditional point guard that's bringing the ball up, playmaking for others. That's just not the NBA right now. But to Sim's point, you still have to have good decision making, even if you're not playing that traditional point guard role. Your playmaking has to be good, and he'll get better at it. This is just his second year. But that game that he played against Sacramento, that's really made me see just more of the potential in his game.
Steph,
Anything else?
you
Yeah.
got a call on the line if you want to get to him.
Oh, I do.
I was just gonna say his initials is IQ, so I think if anything, he's got to live up to that, right?
Yeah, and he's a worker. He's definitely a worker.
Nice.
Caller, you're on the air. What's your name and where you're from?
How you doing, Steph? It's JJ from Brooklyn. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Tonight?
How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Doing well. How's everyone doing?
Good. Doing good. Doing really good.
Good. What's going on, Sim? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good.
What's going on, man?
I'm doing good.
Right. What's on your mind
Good,
today?
good. I wanted to, Tony, man, I love you. I love your show, man. You're doing a great job in Knicks and Bruises. You probably see me in there commenting away, too. But I just wanted to say, you're with the Randle and RJ, where you said you think they're top 10, top 5 duo. I couldn't disagree more. Because to me, you need 3 things if you want to be a really good duo. You need chemistry together, you need wins, and I think you need efficiency. And they don't have any of those things right now. So I can't put them anywhere near that top 5 duo at the moment.
I was only referring to the numbers of those 4 games and their combined numbers. That's all I was referring to.
Oh, you mean for the recent stretch, you mean, of games? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the 4 games last week.
Oh, okay. All right. I got you. Okay. Yeah. But I just mean, when you look at those 2 and you look at, the efficiency for the season, at 41%, that's got to be improved. That's not too efficiency-wise. I'm big on efficiency. Maybe some others probably aren't. But I think if you want to be that top-tier type of player, I think you got to give me mid-40s, high 40s, especially Randle if you're a big. RJ, you still see his efficiency has dipped pretty much on all 3 accounts, shooting, free throw shooting, 3-point line, field goal percentage. That's why I know people always call me an RJ critic. There's been good moments from him. I'm not going to say, I see this huge 30-year leap that others do. He has his moments, and then he has his – what I wanted to really ask you guys was, with RJ recently, I know he's scoring a lot. You see the 25-point games, 27, but the efficiency isn't there. So would you rather him be this type of player where he's averaging 24 a game and inefficient, or would you rather have him be that guy who's dropping maybe 18, 19, but he's efficient and he's playing team ball and sharing the ball and, playing within himself? Because lately it's kind of been almost tunnel vision in a way, he just basically just wants to shoot 25 times. I'm not sure if he should be that type of player, at least at this point in his career. What do you guys think about that?
If I may, okay, go on.
Yeah, I think the efficiency will come. I think the efficiency will come. I think that's part of the development. I agree with you. I think that if he's going to be, a main player on this team, and the same thing for Randle, you have to be efficient from the field and also from the free throw line. But I think it's just a matter of time. I think he knows that. I think he'll be, he will be more efficient. If, just in terms of the type of players I like, I do prefer efficient players.
Me too. Yeah.
Give me the 18 points on an efficient line, then 27 points, and you got to take 27 shots. But I think he's going to get there. Savvy?
Yeah. First of all, salute. Thanks for calling.
Salute. No problem, bro.
This is the way I see what's going on with RJ recently. And to answer your question directly, I prefer this version of RJ than the prior version of RJ. The reason I say that is because the prior version of RJ, I knew that he could go off at any random night, but I never knew when to expect that. And there would be certain matchups where I was like, oh boy, he's in for a long night. He's going to have to find ways to get around this guy and ditch his assignment and create a mismatch because he cannot score on so-and-so. He cannot outdo so-and-so. This iteration of RJ, I feel like he can outdo any guy who gets assigned to him. He can score on anybody. And I feel like a big reason why he's transitioned that way in my viewpoint is because there's been a mental switch that's gone off in his mind, where he's figured out what he can do well, what he can do to be less stoppable by any defender, and what he has in his arsenal as go-to methods of putting points up and breaking down his defender. And I think that the lack of efficiency that we're seeing now is a result of him, recalibrating himself and figuring out, exactly how to use this newfound clarity that he's achieved about his own game, that he can dispense at will. RJ seems much more able to perform at a certain level at will now than he was before, and I think he's going to become more efficient the more he polishes his execution. And that's why I like this version of RJ more than the other one, because the prior versions of RJ that we've seen, there was just certain matchups that you knew was going to get the best of him, and the best that he could do was clamp down on defense, because that was his goal coming into the season, was to try to be in the conversation for DPOY, and however you feel about how he's achieved that. The reason why he wanted to do that was because he understood that, hey, even if I can't be a knockdown shooter from outside, even if I can't be a reliable rim finisher, what I can do is clamp down on defense and try to create turnovers and capitalize on those.
Right.
And so now we see a much more at will scorer, attacker, a guy who's less guardable, a guy who's putting people on notice on other teams and is drawing a lot more attention on defense, and by way of doing so can more easily facilitate for the rest of the team and open Julius Randle up to be a better player, which is why I do think that they can be a great combination, because now they're not just being able to clamp on Julius and let anybody who wants to try to beat them.
Got it. Caller, anything else before
no, that was pretty much it. That's pretty much it. Thanks so much for the opinions.
One quick thing. Whoa. Hey. Don't hang up yet. I want your top 5 duos, my guy.
Top 5 duos right now? Man, let me think. Putting me on the spot. Let's see.
Hey, you called a disagreement. I want to hear the duos.
All right. Well, I'm watching a Philly game right now. Can I put in the new duo or not?
Might not want to do that.
Well, let's just keep it to the top 3 just for time's sake.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to, even though it's a new duo, I don't know if I can actually do that right now, Harden and Embiid, because it's so fresh. But let's see. Man. I got to say Durant, Kyrie, when they're both playing, what's going on with Kyrie. I got to put them up there. Let's see. The way Levine and DeRozan are both playing, I got to put them up there right now. They're both playing amazing this year. I would put them up there in no particular order. Who else? Let me see.
I think Embiid and Harden counts. I mean, it's a new.
Yeah, I think you could count it, right?
Yeah,
even though it's new, right? I mean,
well, thank you, caller. Appreciate you.
Thanks so much. You guys have a good rest of the night, all right?
All right. You do the same.
Thank
Appreciate you, man.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So before we get into Randle and RJ, I just wanted to make this quick comment on McBride and get your opinion, and then we'll get into whether RJ and Randle, our thoughts on whether we think they can play well together. So McBride is getting about 16 minutes a game. I think Preston to duty more so. Oh, we had another caller?
He's on hold. Go ahead. He'll just listen in.
Oh, okay.
Hello?
He's getting about 1 second, caller. We'll get to you. He's averaging 16 minutes a game. Only 1 point, 1.5 rebounds, whatever. I don't think it's the statistical part for me is important. And I know there's been some fans saying they would like him to play on the ball. But what I'm liking about it is you got somebody who didn't play all season. I think it's good to bring him in, play off the ball, right? Less pressure. And even though he may not show up statistically, when you're in a role like that as a coach and for the rest of the players, you want somebody that can come in and hit their spots offensively, hit their spots defensively. not make a lot of mistakes so that the offense and the defense can continue to roll. You don't want somebody pressed into duty and they're throwing things out of whack because they're not where they're supposed to be, or they're not, defensively, they're not rotating well. And I think with McBride, he knows his assignment. So whether or not it shows up statistically or not, he's where he's supposed to be, and the offense and the defense can keep rolling. So I'm not that concerned about where he's at statistically, and I'm not very concerned that he's not playing on the ball right now. I think that he can come in and things can kind of keep rolling is a testament to him and the work that he's put in. But just quickly, your thoughts on McBride, who's averaging about 16 minutes, at least this week, about 16 minutes a game.
It's like a two-sided coin. So what you pointed out, he's playing, or you like what you see from him, but the low production. Two things that stood out during two of those games, at least two of those games, he was like top 2 in plus minus on a team, even with that lack of affecting the stat line. So in one case, you could look at it as, at the very least, he's not affecting the game negatively while he's on the floor. You know what I mean? Like, so in the 16 minutes or whatever the case, he may not be scoring, but he's not a liability in any sense because of that. But that also could be due to the fact that the ball is not in his hands, which gives it like less chance for a turnover, less chance for a missed shot if you don't have the shot, or things of that nature. I'm one of those people that I would like to see him on board more. I think as the season gets towards the end, I think we will. I think part of the reason was these are still meaningful games right now, or obviously the further back you go, the more meaningful the games were, and you don't want to risk him making those mistakes that kind of cost you. But as we move further and play in is further and further out of the picture, I think we'll see more of an opportunity of what he could do. See him get more of an opportunity of what he could do.
Okay, Sam?
Yeah, I like what I've seen from Deuce and during the stretch. You know what I mean? I think he's one of those players that can be a glue guy, and I think the Knicks are sorely missing one of those type of guys. You know what I mean? Someone who's going to dive on the floor to get the basketball. Just do those little things out there that you may not want your stars always doing those things, right? Because you don't want to chance injury. Not that Deuce is expendable and you want him to get injured, but you know what I'm saying, right? That's energy that you may not want them expending so that they can be fresh come down the fourth quarter, or throughout the game, so that they can hit shots, especially if they have to defend the best player sometimes, a lot of things. So you need guys that are willing to dive on the floor, or play multiple positions, do things that some other people won't do. And I think Deuce is one of those guys. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, he's a good defender. Now, we haven't really seen what he's able to do offensively yet when he's in an extended role. So I like what I've seen from him, during his time. Now, one thing that I have seen out there, though, I've seen people tweet that, when Deuce plays over 15 minutes a game, the Knicks win. I don't know. I don't know if the Knicks won those games because Deuce was playing 15 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Or did Deuce play 15 minutes because the Knicks were up double digits? You know what I'm saying? So, you got to ask those questions too. You know what I mean? So it's not just related to Deuce. And this is not to downplay what he did during those games and how he contributed. It's not to downplay that at all. But let's just not say, well, it's because Deuce was out there on the floor. I don't think that's the case. You know what I'm saying? He contributed to those wins without a doubt. You know what I'm saying? But he's not the sole cause of those wins.
Nor any of our young players. We hear that a lot too, because the young players are playing now. Now we're winning. Yeah. They're contributing, but the horses are playing well. Savvy?
So you're saying that because the Knicks blew out the Mavericks during a low tide, that we shouldn't be expecting for a win during every low tide game? Is that what you're saying, Tim? Because that correlation seems pretty spot on to me. I want the tide to be low every single time that we play any team, because that means we're going to blow them out again, because the correlation is causation.
I mean, right. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Low tide. Hey, you know, who do we holler at about that? Is it Tibbs?
You know, as long as we can just manipulate the lunar cycle, you know, to keep the tide low.
Right.
Then the Knicks will win every game.
There we go.
By a blowout.
Let's do it.
Okay. Nah, but seriously though, on Deuce McBride, man, it's a beautiful thing to see him play any minutes at all. I think his impact goes outside of the stat sheet, just like Steph says. Like, I don't need to see you put up numbers and fill the stat sheet. What I do appreciate and what's going to keep him in rotation and on the court is his energy, his commitment to defense. I mean, shout out to Julito. He made a joke that Deuce was gonna follow De'Aaron Fox to the bathroom because he was just glued to that man every moment that he was on the court defending him. And I just love that type of mentality. I love a guy who commits and buys in like that, and a guy who will do the scrappy extra things to put us over. And I think that energy is contagious. That's why Ron Baker has his own line of bobbleheads that sell very well amongst a certain fringe of the fan base, because he always gave a bunch of energy, because, you know, I mean, that was the best thing he had to offer.
Yeah.
You didn't think he was going to get a Ron Baker reference, did you? You didn't think I was going to drop us a Ron Baker reference tonight, did you?
All right. Let's move on to Randle. And I'm sorry, Sam. You was going to say something? Oh, the caller.
Yes.
Hello? Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, caller. Very persistent. I appreciate you. You are on the air. What's your name and where you're from?
My name is D. I'm from New Jersey.
Welcome,
wanted
D.
to thank you guys for taking a call. Big fan of all of your shows. I listen. I normally don't call in, but you know, I I listen to your shows all the time, and I hear a lot of different perspectives and views of why the Knicks are where they are. And my perspective is there's no leadership. I think there are players who are trying to identify with who's the leader. Randle wants to be the leader. Fournier wants to be the leader. RJ is trying to figure out his spot. And when you see these games and you see the losses, that's where the confusion comes in. For example, when they were playing the Nets, the whole third quarter, RJ never touched the ball. And when we talk about efficiency, basketball is rhythm. And when you take a player out of his rhythm, where you don't allow him to touch the ball the whole third quarter, and then you expect this player to be efficient in the fourth, that's the problem. That's a coaching problem, because Tibbs should recognize that. He should recognize it was about 10, 15 times they went down the court, and it was IQ giving the ball to Randle. It was Fournier giving the ball to Randle. It was to a point where RJ was corner RJ again. And at that point, now you're telling this kid, okay, we need you to score a basket. So he's trying to do whatever he can do to score, but you take him out of the rhythm. And I don't understand it. I don't understand why we don't run plays. I can understand Fournier needing plays. Give him 2 or 3. See what he does. Give Randle 2 or 3. See what he does. But you got to let these guys touch the ball. You cannot ice out a player for the whole – he took one shot the whole third quarter. Then you bring in a fourth. Now everybody trying to be the superstar. Everybody trying to save the game. And we blew it. We blew it because this team has no knowledge of who the leader is. How does this team work? What I do know is when RJ touches the ball, the team is more efficient. It's better. Something good happens compared to when Randle is charging down the middle, crashing into 3 or 4 different people, and then kicking out at the last second for somebody to take a bad shot. Or Fournier stumbling and bumbling, shooting up a 3. Now, all of these guys have skill. We have a good team. We just don't have order. We don't have people understanding what they need to do when they need to do it. If you really look at these games, you watch it, you see the confusion when nobody knows what they're supposed. Randle thinks I need to save the game in the fourth quarter, so he jacks up shots. RJ does the same thing, but this is a 21-year-old kid compared to 26, 27-year-old Randle, who's been in the league 8 years, or Fournier, who's been in the league 7 years. This guy been in the league 3 years trying to figure out how to do what they should already know how to do. So for me, I think if you really watch these games, you'll see that. It's about who is the leader, who is the one that we need to run this offense through. RJ is the most efficient. He's the better at it. And I don't understand how our coaches don't recognize that. How do you guys feel about that?
I don't think RJ is efficient. I think he's working toward that. But I do agree that that when he handles the ball, it's cleaner. I think there's less turnovers. I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but it seems like there's less turnovers. And we're going to talk about this in the next segment, whether or not we feel they can play together, because it does seem like one person either has the ball and doing a thing, or it's the other and not necessarily playing together. Any quick thoughts on this, right, guys, before yes, caller?
Yeah, as a team, that when you watch it, you get games where Randle does great, but then you see RJ is trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do? When they and it's funny when they play together and they both seem to play on a balanced level, we tend to win. But these games that are tight, that are close, and you see that Tibbs is over there just, I don't even know what he's doing. He's not calling the plays. There's no listen, we got to do this. For example, that play at the end of the game where Mitch got the ball. And come on, this is coaching. This is who you don't get the corrections on Randle. Randle does whatever he wants, and then at this particular point, it's causing that same trickle-down effect on a lot of players. You see Fournier doing stupid things. You see a lot of bad decisions being made because there's no true leadership. And when you guys were talking about Deuce, it's the same thing. You got a player that's killing in G League, and people say, well, it's G League. G League is still, these are semi-pro basketball players. These are players that will eventually be in a pros or they may not. He's down there killing. He comes up here. He has no clue. He's not comfortable with doing the things that he does in the G League because he doesn't have the freedom to. So we see players that are not allowed to be who they truly are. He gets on a court, and he's a point guard. He never brings the ball up. You got IQ bringing the ball up. These things like that I don't understand. If he's a point guard, what is he out there to do then? Is he out there just to be a decoy? Let the man bring the ball up. Let's see what he does. Let's see him run the point. We haven't, in the games that Deuce has been playing, we haven't seen Deuce run the point yet.
Yeah, but
he barely brings the ball up in the G League, though. I will say that. It's a shared offense for him in the G League as well. He's not the primary ball handler when he's down there. So, I agree with some of your points. You make great points as far as his role isn't going to be the same from the G League to the NBA. Right. He's not going to have this. He's an OG on the G League. The G League, being a rookie, the G Leaguers look up to him because they know he's going back up to the big team. They know that, like, he's already semi-established in having a career where they're trying to earn a career. His role is totally different in those two scenarios. As far as RJ and Randle, and we're going to get into it more, I agree that we are lacking leadership. But part of that is Derrick Rose not being here. Because if we have a guy like Derrick Rose who is able to decipher when either he takes the shot, RJ takes the shot, or Randle takes the shot, I think that does well for all of us. I think what we're seeing is, you're right, they're taking turns. Randle want to be a hero. RJ want to be a hero. And it's hard for both of them to decide when it's best for the team to play the team ball and when it's best for me to say, I'm going to take over the game. Because we've seen both of them fill those roles at certain points.
Absolutely. Yep. I agree. But see, that's where if those two guys figure that out, that they work well together if they play together and stop trying to. Randle wants to be the leader of New York. He wants to be the guy in the spotlight, and you can see that. That's why we had that slump where Randle was pouting and upset and annoyed because he wasn't the fan favorite at that particular time. Now he's coming back into his own, and now you have that battle between who's leading. Is it me? Is it RJ? Let me go out there and get my 30.
Yeah, but see, I also think, caller, let me jump in there right quick. And let me jump in there. I also think, though, it takes time to build that chemistry, right? And I know they've been playing together for 3 years, right? But it takes some time for that chemistry to grow, to understand, who's going to get the ball, when, where, and how. Because for 2 of those 3 years, 1 year RJ was a rookie, and for half the season you had Mook Morris on the team. So Mook was really the guy who was being depended on in the clutch. He was the leader out there. And then last year, RJ was, learning how to play. So he was basically playing alongside Randle, and Randle was the guy last year. Now this year, RJ's becoming more of the guy, or it's a duo between both of them, right, at this point. And it seems like RJ is ascending. So it takes time. This is a road of development. It's not just, I got to let him do it, and now I got to let him do it. It takes time for them guys to figure it out. Just like LeBron and Dwayne Wade. It took time for those guys to figure it out. And they were good enough to make it to the championship, in their first season together. But it took time for that chemistry to really build and grow to the point where it operated like a well-oiled machine. Sometimes you get players that can come together, like when you go way back in the day with Paul Pierce and KG and Ray Allen, and they just seemed to fit seamlessly. But they were also a little bit older when it started to fit seamlessly. You know what I'm saying? So I think it takes some time for that type of thing to develop. It's not just going to happen over 3 seasons, especially when you got one player who came in as a rookie and, was finding his way his first 2 seasons, and now he's starting to come on. So for each season that these two guys have been together, their roles have changed in each season. You know what I'm saying? So it takes time.
Is the caller still on or no? I'm sorry about that. I had to.
To your point with Boston too, they not only did they got it their first year, but guess what? They never got it again. They never won another one. You know what I mean? So maybe they lucked out. Maybe everything fell right into place year one,
right?
And then as they move forward, they just wasn't able to, do it again as close as they got. So nothing's ever given, even with the chemistry.
Right.
Have we moved on to the next segment? I'm sorry, I had to.
About Randle and RJ?
Not yet.
No, we haven't. I mean, I guess we
kind of the caller kind of segued us right into it. All right. I mean, so basically, can they play together? We looked at the contracts for next season. Unless something major happens, we're kind of locked into this team next year. I'm not sure how much changes can be made. So we're looking at another year with pretty much this same roster. And, we got Randle and RJ as our 2 best players at this point. Can they play together in an offense that looks fluid? I mean, from what I'm seeing, it's either RJ has the ball and he's doing what he does, or Randle has the ball and he's doing what he does. And there's been games where at the end of it, statistically, they'll each be in the high 20s, even 30s. But it's just not looking fluid to me. So I guess my question to the panel is, Do you think RJ and Randle can coexist, can play well together? Listen, we've seen it. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, two players who are high usage rates, pretty much play on the wing. It can be done.
Yeah.
Can it be done with these two? I'm going to start Tony, Savvy, Sim.
I'll make the same point I just made. I think they can absolutely play together. I think for it to work best, one of two things have to happen. We need a point guard who is going to be the primary decision maker and kind of figure out how to feed these guys and make it more of a team thing where it's not my turn, your turn, or I need to take over. Let somebody kind of decide, RJ, you got the advantage or you got it going tonight. I'm going to feed you. And I'm going to try to get Randle some easy ones. He may not be on tonight. So I think we need that. But I think a better question would be, is there a way that they can play off each other? Because if they can figure that out, I think that changes the whole dynamic. I think that's what we're not seeing, them play off each other. You know what I mean? So, and that for that, I don't have the answer because we haven't really seen it. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm going with it. Can they play together? Absolutely. Bigger question, can they play off of each other? Because I think that opens up a world of possibilities.
Right, which is kind of what I'm saying. Let me just read this super chat before I forget. Nikki B from Harlem, appreciate the super chat. I think the pecking order is clear. Randle slightly above RJ and then everybody else. I don't see a crisis in leadership. It's a crisis in skill. We are not as good as other teams. That's our problem. That's a good point. Nikki B from Harlem. Appreciate you.
It is a good point. But here's what I'll say in response to that, and also my take on the topic, is that don't underestimate what efficiency and fluidity can make us look like. If we bring a little bit more efficiency, trim away some of the erratic mistakes and create a more fluid dynamic out on the court there, it's going to appear that we're much more talented than we are right now, because it's not going to seem so my turn, his turn type of a dynamic. And we're already seeing that in the way that, it seems like pretty much most of the guards, whether they start or whether they come off the bench, know how to find Obi Toppin, know how to find Mitchell Robinson and hit them with timely passes so that they can capitalize on that. By the way, shout out to Obi Toppin. Youngin had a good game last night, and it's a shame that Cam Reddish is no longer with us for this season, but I'm glad that we still have Obi to come in and fill in the blanks. On the topic of RJ and Julius, like I said earlier, the fact that RJ has taken the leap and been able to draw the attention of defenses could go a long way to opening up the game for Randle. And the more that they develop a passing dynamic between each other where they understand each other's cuts and the timings and the tendencies of each other when they're off the ball, then I think we're going to start to see more of that tandem happen. Tony Crow's absolutely right. When we have D Rose back in the lineup, to call a guy up in certain moments and be the one to decide, okay, I'm going to activate you right now. And be able to really facilitate and learn how to orchestrate this offense using those guys' strengths, then we're going to really see what this team could be like. And I think that one of the things that we could do to sort of, make better use of our time until that happens is to send Burks back to the second unit, okay, and bring in someone like Immanuel Quickley, who has shown an ability to make certain passes that we need to make. It's going to take him some time to adjust, but I think that Immanuel Quickley, even though he sometimes gets in his own way, I think that Alec Burks is much more of a guy that when he's out, when he's cooking, he's gonna be the one to make that push before he looks to facilitate anybody else. I think because of his youth, probably more than anything, Immanuel Quickley would look to see if he can defer at certain moments, and if not him, then perhaps Deuce McBride. But I do think that they can play well together, especially if we can find a tandem where one of them is shooting more and one of them is cutting to the basket.
Yeah, I think before I get to you, somebody in the chat made a good point, and I should have started the comment about both of them being efficient. Like last year, both of them shot about 40% from 3-point line, and it was easy to kind of play, and they played well off of each other. But basically, they were playing off of the entire team was playing off of Randle, right? I think there's a different role now with RJ taking on more responsibility, showing that he can also handle the ball and he can also play make. Really wanting to get to the point where they are playing off of each other. I'm not seeing much of that, but I think it's possible. Sam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I don't see much of them playing off of each other. And I don't know if it's due to them. I don't know if it's their fault, honestly. I think that's the way that Tom Thibodeau has the offense set up. You know, I think sometimes coaches want to have their two best scorers on either side of the floor so that if Randle penetrates, gets to the lane, he can kick it out to RJ, or RJ can do the opposite. You've seen it in the Brooklyn game where RJ penetrated to the basket, he kicked it to Randle in the corner, but then Randle swung it, and then it got back to RJ, I guess it was. And RJ knocked down the three. You know, so I don't know if you're going to see much of these two guys playing off of one another, like Tony is saying, where, you know, RJ has got the ball and Randle setting the screen, and he, you know, and then they're going back and forth like you see Evan Fournier and Julius Randle do sometimes. You know what I mean? I don't know if we're going to see much of that because I feel like Tibbs wants those guys on opposite side of the floor. You know, so, you know, that may affect how they look playing off of one another. From time to time they do, right? Julius Randle will hand the ball off to RJ, and RJ, you know, dribble down the left side of the lane and lay it up. You know, you'll see RJ have the ball on the wing, get a screen from Randle, and then Randle go into the post, RJ get him the ball in the post, and then RJ slide out the way. But I think you will see more of that. I think you'll see more of that as time goes on, as long as they're playing together. Because I've seen times when RJ, from the beginning of the season, is yelling at Evan Fournier to get out the corner because he knows that Julius Randle is getting ready to post up, or Julius Randle is getting ready to, you know, go to the cup because he's recognizing his tendencies or just what the play is and what's about to happen. And then I've seen time when Julius Randle is pointing to Kemba Walker, to RJ over in the corner, like, let's run this play right here, you know, and get the handoff to RJ so he can go down the lane. So I think it can happen. I think they can play together. I don't know if we're going to see it the way that we want to see it, where it's those two guys, you know, looking like this dynamic duo every time they're on the floor together. I think it's going to be those two guys looking like a dynamic duo with other people on the floor. You know what I'm saying? Or their chemistry looks better with other people on the floor because, one, I think, again, Tom Thibodeau likes having them on opposite sides so that they can maybe throw it to one another. Also, if he thinks that these two guys are his best playmakers out there, at least right now, Randle can work with Fournier and whoever to do some playmaking for that guy, and RJ can work with Mitch and whoever to do some playmaking for them. So, you know, maybe that's how it's going to work.
But even with them playing opposite sides, I just get the sense that when RJ has the ball, RJ is going to score. When Randle has the ball, Randle is looking to score. Like I just feel like they could be on opposite sides. I mean, that's cool, but move the ball around. It just seems like if RJ's having a good game, that's it. The offense stops. the ball just keeps going to RJ. If Randle is having a good game, the offense stops and we just keep going to Randle.
Mm-hmm.
The fluidity stops. And I
No, I
just,
agree.
even if they're playing on opposite sides,
I,
that's okay because both of them can handle the ball. I would still like to see some
I think
some
that's why
fluidity.
I think that's why the best option is somebody in between them making
Mhm.
that decision for them, rather than, because now if let's just say it's D Rose, if it's D Rose, right, and he feeds you, you know he's feeding you to go do what you got to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he's making that decision for you, so you don't gotta say, all right, I got the ball. Do I need to go? You already know. He fed it to me. That means go eat. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's the best option, whether it's Rose or someone else moving forward. I think it has to be someone they respect enough to give them that responsibility or relinquish that decision making, and now your decision is made for you. Go
Right.
score. You know what I mean? Go. And I think that's the best way for it to happen.
Right.
But
I
does that take
agree.
away from their game, Sim? And then you can also comment on what you're going to say. When you got that point guard, I mean, that's a big part of their game to be able to bring the ball up, initiate the offense. And I think it also makes the offense a bit more unpredictable.
Mhm.
So now having that point guard that's going to do it, that means Randall's playmaking, he's mostly finishing. RJ's playmaking, he's mostly finishing. Does that help or hurt? But also, Sim, you can also start with what you were going to say.
Yeah. I was just going to agree with Tony. That I do think you need a guy out there that kind of makes that decision for him. But I don't think it has to be every single play. I think they can still do some playmaking. It's just that
Okay.
their playmaking goes down a little bit. You know what I'm
Gotcha.
saying?
Down the
So
stretch.
right, their playmaking goes down, or not playmaking, but their facilitation goes down a little bit. You know what I mean? Because I think anyway that with Julius Randle, with either one of those guys, at least right now, when you start to use them in that facilitation role too much, you start to get negative returns. You know what I'm saying? So to have somebody out there that's making that decision for them, and when it's not going well, like you gave the ball to Julius Randle and he's holding it for too long, he can come back and say, "Hey, let me get it. Boom, I'm gonna get it to the other side."
Yeah, what
You
they
know?
do, Sim?
Yeah, right.
Go to the
Give it up.
player side of clap. Give it to me.
Right, right. He can, get the ball, say, "Let me get it to the other side of the floor." See if we can get something going over there. You know what I mean? Because I think it's a lot. I think it ends up being a lot for Julius Randle. And RJ Barrett, I think he's going to be really good at it one of these days. But I think it becomes a lot for Julius Randle to make that decision and know, all right, do I try to take it for myself? Do I facilitate it in this moment? I think he's still indecisive in some of those areas.
Yeah. And I mean, I may be in the minority. I really want it to work because I just think I know people are down on Randall. I just think it's so hard to find a 20-10-5 guy. It's just really hard to find a guy like that. And
Mm-hmm.
you got RJ coming into his own. If we can get a point guard that kind of takes, because to me, that's Randall's issue, the facilitation. You could take the facilitation out of his hand. Maybe, just maybe, he'll be more efficient. So that's my hope that they can play together and we can get a point guard that will make it more efficient all around. Otherwise, one of them may have to go. I mean, it'll probably be Randall.
It probably would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, if one of them were to go, it would probably be Randall.
Hey, don't put that in the air.
I know.
Hey, y'all, do y'all know that the last time we had like a solid marquee point guard, I didn't even know what college I was gonna go to. Like, really, really think about that. Like, I was in high school. I wasn't even a senior. The last time we had
But
a
Savvy, you look
marquee.
like you in high school now. Like, so how long ago was that?
No, wait, actually, I'm bugging because 2013 we had Jason Kidd.
Yeah, but the thing about it, and I'm still not sure, does the front office see that as a priority? They didn't see it as a priority coming into the summer. And I don't know if they thought because of Randle's facilitation, they wanted somebody that can kind of play both on and off the ball. I'm really hoping that seeing Randle this year has kind of opened their eyes to the fact that, it's a priority.
I think maybe they thought it was more risk going after one of these other guards long term than it would be trying Kemba out short term. I don't know if they didn't think it was a priority. I just think they made a mistake. You know what I mean? I think they made the wrong guesstimation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you, and this is no knock on any other player, but if you're unsure of a free agent, and you're weighing giving him 4 years, which would have been definitely more money than what we ended up giving Kemba, I think maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe that was the decision. But in the same sense, then I do agree with you because they gave money to Fournier, which could have, you know what I mean? Like that means they were more sure on Fournier than they were on
the point guards that was on the point guards that was on the market.
But who's to say they were even interested as well?
Right, because
the free agent.
Right, because you seen Lonzo Ball, he was wrapped up before free agency even hit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
as was Lowry.
Right, and guys were wrapped up before it even hit. So who knows how that actually worked? You know.
So maybe
these tampering rules don't mean nothing.
Was not going after like the point guard on Toronto. Maybe that was the mistake. Like a year,
Van Vliet. Right.
Like earlier, not going after one of them.
Or maybe
earlier.
the mistake was not cheating.
Right.
I mean, you picked up all those second round picks. You know, that's all Chicago gave up was right. They gave up like 2 second round picks or something like that.
But do you think they were all, and I know this is revisionist history, do you think they were all wrapped up because they got word that the Knicks wasn't going to pay? There was only but so much the Knicks was going to pay because, you know, certain things, you know, conversations happen even before.
Yeah, because, you know, it was out there that DeMar DeRozan said that if the Knicks would have matched Chicago's offer, he would have been in New York. He would have chosen New York over Chicago. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Any last words before we just move on briefly to anything else on the RJ Randle before we move on to next week?
My only thing is just to be, you know, for people to be patient with the two. You know what I mean? Because over 3 seasons that they've been here, you know, the first season RJ was a rookie. You had Mook Morris there, who, you know, was kind of the leader out there for half a season. You know what I'm saying? And then in the second season, you had Julius Randle rise up and become the leader of the team. And now in this season, it's changing again. The roles are changing again. So it's going to take some time for the thing to work. You know what I mean? It's not all going to happen at one time.
Boy, Mook stepped right out. Sorry, Steph. Mook stepped right out on that court and slapped Buddy. Told him stop playing. Playing and then put buckets on his head. That was crazy. What a great Knick. Oh, man.
I would love to have Mook back. But before we even get to the next week's game, let's do the Thrive Fantasy Player of the Week. If you haven't already, go to thrivefantasy.com, use code MBK, get 100% deposit match up to $100. Julius Randle, Thrive Fantasy Player of the Week. He averaged 33.5 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, 4.3%, assists. And he was efficient this week, 48.9% from the field, which is fantastic, and 47.2% from three, and 80% from the free throw line. That is a monster week. So shout out to Julius Randle.
Yeah, that's a monster week.
Break out the orange Julius memes again.
I hope we could do it at home.
Yeah, I hope he could do it more. The efficiency would help. The efficiency would really help. All right. So next week we play Portland, we play Washington, we play the Jazz. All right. Portland is 26-40. Portland has a lot of injury histories. And remember, McCullough was traded. Dame is out. Anthony Simmons, who was coming on for them, is also out. I don't know if he'll be back for that game. They're ninth in the Western Conference. They won one game, 4-6 over their last 10. Their offensive rating is 25th, defensive rating 29th. So this is a game that if the Knicks come to play, they can get. We play in Washington, who is 11th, if nothing has changed since the last time I looked at. In the Eastern Conference, 29-37. They lost 3 of 7 over their last 10. We played them earlier in this. We only played Washington one time. So we must have 2 more games against them.
Yeah.
They're 19th in offensive rating, 24 in defensive rating. And then the Jazz heavy hitters, 42-25, 4th in the Western Conference, first in offensive rating, and 11th in defensive rating. Any thoughts on this? Oh, and the Knicks are 24th in offensive rating and 16th. Just not, 16th in defensive rating. Any thoughts on and these upcoming games?
I mean, I think that the Knicks can win all of these games, to be honest with you. Of course, it's going to come down to them closing the game out, but I think they can win all of those games against Portland. I think the Knicks are going to be, that's another team that they gave up a 20-point lead to. I think they're going to be motivated to win that basketball game. Against Washington, that's an important one. If the Knicks are still fighting for the play-in, which I think they still are until they're mathematically eliminated, that's going to be an important game because Washington is 2 games ahead of the Knicks in the standings. So if they want to get to that 10th seed, they got to jump over top of the Washington Wizards, right? So if they can win that game, they'll be just 1 game behind the Wizards. You know what I mean? In Utah, I just feel like the Knicks match up well against Utah. Utah is obviously a better team. I just feel like they match up well. I think they can win that basketball game too.
Yeah.
So you going 3-0?
I don't know if I'm going 3-0. I think they're going to drop one of them somewhere in there, but I think they can go 2-1 at least. I don't know which one they drop, but I think they can go at least 2-1.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I agree that all 3 are winnable. My biggest concern, obviously, are the Jazz because they got a guy that could literally, win it on their own or be that guy down the stretch that we just can't stop.
Right.
Which has seemed to been a problem for us in the past. But I am going to go 3-0 though. I think this is like your final stance, you know what I mean? So I'm like, if we can't go 3-0 right now, I think one more loss does it for me. So I'm gonna say 3-0 because they're winnable, and obviously 1 game at a time. But then see what next week holds after that. But 3-0.
All right.
I'm gonna give us 2-1. I think we beat Portland. I think we beat Washington. The game against the Jazz to me is a toss-up. It's just such a shame that we lost the guys we did, man. If we still had Cam, I feel more confident about that game just because of the versatility he brings at his height. But I think we definitely got that game versus Washington, and that game versus Portland. I mean, I would hate to lose that one, especially because they just don't have the go-to options that they've always relied on historically. Like Anthony Simons is doing some nice things, but even if he's back in the game and he cooks that game, I still expect us to handily defeat them. And just a side note, it's crazy how 26-40 gets you 9th in the West.
Yeah, the East is a beast this year. You think about how many games the Knicks lost by 2, 3, 4 points. You can argue that we're not that far off. I mean, you can argue, if you look at those games, you can argue that had we been healthy, if we had a point guard that, and I think that may be what the front office is looking at in this off season. So we shall see. Any last words?
The last thing that I say about that Jazz game, the news came out. Well, I don't know if it came out today, but yesterday, I think Steve Popper said that the Knicks are basically they're going to go after Donovan Mitchell, right? And the fans know it, you know what I mean? And he said it's an open secret around the NBA that the Knicks are going to target Donovan Mitchell. The fans know it. So, when he comes to the Garden, he's going to feel good. He's going to feel comfortable. The crowd, he start playing well, he might get some cheers. You know what I'm saying? So,
Oh, wow.
he might get some cheers out there. You know what I mean? Because fans like, hey, we want you to come to New York. I guess just a real quick question. Let's just say that Donovan Mitchell told Utah they get eliminated in the first round. He says, I want to try something else. I want to go someplace else. What's it take New York to get him?
Well, I would like for him to play with RJ.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if we have to give up RJ, and I know me and Tony disagree on this, I think we're in the same spot. I mean, I'm not saying I think he is better than RJ. Don't get me wrong right now, but we're still in the same spot of needing another player. So I would rather give up anybody else. Everybody else is on the table. I would like to keep Randle and RJ, and they can have anybody else.
Okay. I had to make sure you was gonna say Randle as well, because I think if you're judging it based off of the like one of the two of them gotta go, I think it has to be RJ, because I don't know if I think we're Mitchell and Randle, we're closer than with Randle and Mitchell. I will say this though, with RJ and Mitchell. If we did do the RJ and Mitchell thing, I think it just gives us a longer timeline, a bigger window. You know what I mean?
Right.
But can the fan base take it? Are they gonna be patient? Are they, you know what I mean? Because that's still not a win now team. But as far as what it takes to get them, I'm with you. I hope we could keep Randle and RJ. And I remember that what I said last episode about they was talking about 5 picks. I do the 5 picks,
right.
Easy, and then whatever combination of whomever you want after Randle and RJ, I do it.
Everything on the table.
Everything is on the table.
It's going to be. It would be tough. I think if you're talking about keeping Randle and RJ, right?
I think you got to start with 5.
You got to start.
Picks.
Yeah, you got to start with mad picks, and you're looking at it not happening until the summer of 2023. The reason why I say that is because if you're talking about trying to keep Randle and RJ, I think you're going to have to take on some bad contracts in order to make it happen. So the summer of 2023, that's when you have money available during the summer where you can take on a bad contract, to help Utah, because if they give up Donovan Mitchell, they're starting over, right? So, to help Utah relieve some salary cap space, plus they have all these picks, you know what I'm saying? Now they can, now they can do some work in the draft. They can sign players, whatever it is that they need to do. You know what I'm saying? They have maximum flexibility. So I think if you're talking about keeping RJ and Randle in that type of scenario, you're going to have to wait until 2023 when the Knicks have cap space to be able to take back some bad contracts.
Yeah, and Cam is leaving in that. I mean, a lot of the young players are leaving in that.
Yeah.
Everybody's gone,
and I would be, be okay with it too. And I'll be okay with it too.
Everybody's gone.
Guess what?
I mean, you talking.
You could have all the picks.
Listen, you talking. Cam,
it might be 10.
Quickley, Deuce. I mean, whoever it is that they want, they out of there. Mitchell Robinson, they gone.
Have gone.
It might be 10 picks. It might be pick swap, pick swap, pick swap.
Is there enough balls to go around though with Donovan Mitchell, RJ, and Randle?
I think so. I think one thing though, I think Mitchell's gonna have to play some point guard. I think he's gonna have to, like, I don't know what type of point guard we fit in that role. Even a Deuce is wild, just as wild. Because he's as good as he is as a defender, you're gonna want a guard. If you're gonna have a point guard, you want a point guard that's able to guard multiple positions for sure. You know what I mean? Like I'm talking about 1, 2, and 3 guarding at the one, like being able to guard the 1, 2, and 3.
Someone's gonna have to. It would be tough because, like, even in Utah now, Mike Conley is the facilitator. Donovan Mitchell is the scorer. He's just in a point guard size. Well, they're both point guard size bodies, but Mike Conley is the facilitator. Mm-hmm. Who's going to be that facilitator between those three?
Yeah, that's tough.
Does he do? Because even with Derrick Rose out there with him, Derrick Rose is not really a facilitator. Derrick Rose is going to get his as well. You know what I mean? It's that's a good question, and someone has to take the. Someone of those three, someone's going to be the Chris Bosh. Who's going to be the Chris Bosh?
And in that kind of position, I don't mind Randle facilitating because when think of Randle doesn't make the same mistakes when D Rose is on the floor. You know why? Because he's not going to take 5 dribbles before he gives it to D Rose. He might take 3. He might take 2. So I think Mitchell can be that kind of guy where Randle respects enough that he can facilitate and it won't be hesitant. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be him more of making the right pass, not waiting for it to be like, oh, I got to pass it. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to
he's getting better with that, but his decision making and his turnovers, I would just prefer he not have the ball in his hands.
Yeah. I mean, when you got those 3 guys, somebody's got to facilitate, right? And you don't want to put that on Mitchell and take away. Not?
I mean, you think about Dame, you think about Steph Curry. I don't see the facilitating taken away from their scoring.
Well, see,
their scoring opens up the facility.
I think with Steph Curry, with Steph Curry, I think you got what's his face? Draymond. With Portland, I don't think you have anybody else. But they also haven't been able to get over the hump. I think it would be a difficult thing having all 3 of them. I think you gotta have one guy, and the thing is, they man like so now. I guess you gotta find. So now I guess like maybe Evan Fournier is gone. And your facilitator comes from that position. So you get a player that's 6'6" who can facilitate. I don't know who, but around 6'6". I guess it don't have to be 6'6", because you get another guard that can facilitate. Let RJ play the 3 spot, and you get another guard out there that can facilitate. Then I guess if you find
Ricky
Rubio.
Who could defend and facilitate.
I would like him on next year's team.
Defend and facilitate.
Right. A Rondo, a guy like that's playing at that opposite wing. So Evan Fournier would no longer be there. So now you have room for a facilitator.
And is able to guard some of the bigger 2 guards if you don't want Mitchell doing it.
Right. Yeah. It would have to do, something like that would have to take place. Oh.
Who's the bad contract that we take on in a trade like that?
I don't know who they have over there.
Gobert.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say. Rudy Gobert.
Imagine how funny it would be if we send Fournier over there and bring Gobert over here.
Listen, I'm telling you,
we ain't be able to do nothing.
On the flights, like reaching out to each other, like, buddy.
Minimum contracts after that. Gobert's contract, Randle, RJ's extension.
Yep.
But you almost have to. You almost have to do it like that because you're bringing in Donovan Mitchell, Well, I guess you don't have to because he's still young, and Randle and RJ still young. You know what I mean? But Utah is going to be like, clear our books. You want this guy that bad, you know what I mean? And he wants to go. You want him, clear our books. If you want to keep RJ and Randle.
Why? Maybe it doesn't have to be 2023 after all, because our guys are coming off the books anyway. So they could take them, and it's only for 1 year.
What do you mean?
Instead of us waiting till we have the cap space to do it, we can get rid of all of those expiring.
Okay, I get what you're saying. You could,
and essentially it's the same. You know what I mean? That they still getting the same cap space. They just getting it. Well, they just doing the trade a year early.
I guess I'm just speaking from my mindset. I would rather wait until that money is actually off. So, you know, when I get whoever the bad contract is coming in, I could still maneuver because maybe I'm still under the cap a little bit and I could still maneuver. You know what I'm saying? Where I may not be able, you know, maybe I can't maneuver or whatever. You know, I would just rather wait until my books are clear.
I think too much can happen in a year. I think too much can happen in a year.
I mean, obviously, if he said it right now, then that's when you got to do it. You know what I mean? Like if he came out right this summer and said, "I'm trying to get out of here, trade me," I mean, obviously you got to do it. You can't wait.
Yeah,
and you might have to wait. Like it may have to be a trade deadline thing. They may be on the ropes or on the fence on doing anything, and
to try to extract the most that they can. Right.
Yeah, so
right,
you might have to wait anyway. But
I guess you're right. It would still amount to the same thing, I guess. You know what I'm saying? But man, if you're taking on Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, you better win a championship with them boys, man.
Yeah, but somebody said if they can't win, what do we think we can? But different situation, you know.
They ain't got RJ with them.
Yeah,
Randle with them.
Right.
You know, that changes things.
It does. I mean, listen, Rudy Gobert.
Clarkson?
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Rudy Gobert is on the books until 2026, making $40 million a year. Donovan Mitchell's on the books till 2026, making the most he makes is $37 million in his last season, which, you know, I guess it ain't bad. But that Rudy Gobert contract,
that's ugly.
And they would want that back, right? So they're taking Mitch, probably. They're gonna want that. They're gonna say, yeah, I gotta take this contract.
Yeah. Gobert's no slouch, though. He's no slouch.
And this is the thing too.
No, yeah, you can do a lot worse than Gobert.
This is the thing too. You're talking about the Knicks literally in 2022. I mean, it would be the same thing in 2023. In 2022, that's $67 million between the two. $68 million between the two. The Knicks got to clear $68 million.
I mean, that's pretty much all of those.
So you're talking about they're clearing Evan Fournier,
Burks,
right?
Noel,
Kemba Walker.
Probably got to throw Taj in there too.
That's everybody else, including Derrick Rose.
Wow. They gonna want to. They might throw Obi in before Derrick Rose, but
I mean I mean, because you talk about $67 million, and this is obviously there would be a whole lot of other things. It'd be probably be some kind of 3-team deal, but Evan Fournier makes $18 million next year. Alec Burks, $10 million. That's $28 million. Nerlens Noel makes $10 million. That's $38 million. Kemba Walker, $9 million. You know, that's 47. Obi and Taj together make 10. That's 57. Then Cam Reddish, Quickley, and Grimes. It make the money match. So, oh my god.
Not like this.
Woo.
Not like everything.
This. You have no roster, no young players, no nothing.
But
Lord.
But you got Gobert
and no draft picks.
Donovan Mitchell, RJ, Randle. I don't even know if Gobert and Randle, you think they could play it?
I don't know. I mean,
that's going all in right there.
I mean,
that's going all in. That's all in.
But they young though. They relatively young though.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be starting with just Mitchell, RJ, Randle, Gobert, and then trying to figure
Minimum
out a way to get
contracts.
some players in. And shoo.
And that creates the kind of scene where if you don't do it, that's how you get a disgruntled star that wants to leave again.
Yeah, that'd be that. You know, you're starting with them four. You know, you're probably gonna pick up. You know, you're gonna have to pick up a bunch of minimum contracts. Maybe you got a rookie or two. You know, maybe you got a second round rookie. Maybe you got some guys that you picked up out the G League. But
If I'm Worldwide West, I'm telling that boy to sit tight, just relax, buddy.
But I would do it though.
You would have to do it. You know what I'm saying? You going all in and you trying to win that championship now. But you would.
And then maybe you could even flip Randle, you know, to another team for somebody else.
For 3 people. Because we need players.
We just need warm bodies to fill out this roster.
Right. You need some. You had to pull some people over from. You had to bring Jokic over.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. You had to bring
Vildoza, cornerstone savior.
Yeah. Right. Luka Vildoza.
Yeah.
You know who'd you mention earlier?
Ron Baker.
Bring Ron Baker back.
Lace up, Ron.
You know.
Yeah.
You had to do something.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Philly played 4 players, $35 million. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, any last words? I appreciate you guys for coming and rocking on the Queen's Court.
Appreciate you having us.
Appreciate it.
That was a great one. Hit that like button, subscribe. Savvy, great to have you on. Sam, always great to share the panel.
Definitely.
Queen, salute. Yo, Black, it's time.
Hey, yo. I'm going to come back on here with a Queen's Court neck tattoo just big as hell right here. Bro, all right, Queen's Court all day, every day. This is one of the best shows on
Appreciate you.
on the network. One of the best Knicks shows on the internet. And the fact of the matter is that, especially early on, when Steph started up this show, you would see some of our most seasoned commentators come on here and get shredded up, get their take shredded up by Steph. She was kicking guys out the ring, like hand over fist. I remember when you guys did the fantasy trade swaps. And who you would trade players for. And that was one of my favorite episodes. There's some great concepts on this show. NBK all day, New York Knicks for life. I will see you guys on the next one.
All right. Well, that's all right, Knick family. Be easy. Appreciate the panel. See you next time.